Welcome to Laugh, Cry, or Die. This is a podcast that exists. My name is Steve Wilbury, and as always, I am joined by my excellent co-host, Naomi Strain.
Hello.
We are two subhuman feral troll people, and we're doing a podcast about life as a person with a collection of disabilities and general brokennesses, and this is it.
And that's what keeps us under our bridge as our trolls, is we're not allowed to face the general public because we're
We're
that
only allowed
hideous.
to communicate through a paper bag or via the medium of audio.
Otherwise, we'll scare the children.
Well, you know, as it is. Today's topic is going to be two topics in one. Maybe we're going to do the Spaz Club and loss, stroke, acceptance, stroke, whatever else we can kind of think of, basically.
What things pop into our head.
Oh, yes. So I have had 8 surgical procedures and my nervous system is a shattered wreck. Naomi, what's your deal?
I have seizure disorder and epilepsy, and I have seizures all over the place, all the time, which keeps life very exciting.
I can't stop her from having seizures. I'm like, Naomi, stop. And then she's just like, no, I'm going to have a seizure.
And every now and again, you go, "Have you thought about just not having seizures?" It's like,
And
hot
she
damn, I never
won't.
thought of that.
She won't. She's a willful Caesar.
You
She's
shall not stop me.
You're just doing it for attention at this point, Naomi. And I think
Look at
we're
me,
all
look at
just a
me.
bit bored, to be
Watch me
honest.
piss myself. Ha ha.
See, now
That's a
that is
whole different
possibly a
podcast.
better revenue stream than the podcast, would just be videos of you weeing.
You say probably, I say it's a fact.
I do not. I saw like this video on Reddit the other day, and there's this guy on the beach, and he was going around to people, and he's like, "How much money is in your bank account?" And this like 27-year-old woman was like, €1 million. It's like, how? From selling feet pics?
I think I might have seen that guy. Yeah, that's I think we do need to delve into something like that because being an unemployed, disabled person, finding some random, easy kind of stream of money would be great. But actually, that makes me think about why we're doing the podcast is trying to find a random, easy way to socialize without leaving the house.
Yes,
Is
this
a
is true.
really like doing this gives a really good bit of social. Because otherwise, it's just a pretty weird existence when people expect you to be able to live normally and go out and be social and do stuff.
Mm.
And it's like, can't we just do it by Zoom? And then I can do it while I'm collapsed in a heap and dribbling and looking like shit after getting out from hospital.
Yeah,
Be a lot easier.
there's I think when you've got a disability, there's a lot of staring at your walls and being like,
Yes.
oh, look, I'm in the same room that I'm normally in, and there's no one else here. But I also don't want anyone to be here because people are horrid.
Yeah. But I think it really helps with creativity because you have to make your own entertainment. It's like if anyone could watch me all night long, it's I don't know. I don't know if I react like a normal person to life.
I don't think we do. I think maybe this is a good segue into this concept that Naomi started, and I then like kind of like tied my name to. That's become an overarching theme. Is this idea of the Spaz Club, and kind of like the N word. We're taking it back, but without quite so much slavery and cultural baggage. But
Yeah,
spaz is
completely.
normally a pejorative term, whereas we're kind of taking it as our medical hats. Well, Naomi's got way better spasticity than I do.
Look, I've got genuine all the time spasticity. See, I'm such a spaz, I can't even say the word.
You're such a
But do
spaz, you
you
can't
get.
even say spaz.
But yeah, I think I can't remember how I actually first came about, but we do allow other people to occasionally pop into the Spaz Club,
Hmm.
but they have to be spazzy enough. Like
Yeah,
people
I
you go,
think
oh, I mean, and without belittling other people's issues, if someone says, "Oh, I get headaches now and again," get out. You're not allowed in the Spaz Club. You have to be genuinely fucked to be
mm,
allowed in.
if you get like cluster migraines that make you vomit, then I think
Yeah,
that would let you in. And
yeah,
it's
yeah.
this idea. So I also have spasticity from my neurological condition. I just get these huge they call them myclonic jerks, which sounds like a weird kind of like beef jerky.
They're
But
like those ones when you fall asleep. That sort of
yes,
yeah,
like
right.
that, but just like whenever, and also in response to odd stimulus. But anyway, um, but that was the idea of like I have spasticity. I am a spaz. That kind of taking ownership, and for someone, for people who aren't us too, to be in it, I think it's kind of become this idea of a point where your health has collapsed to the point that life as the vast majority of people know it is completely unachievable or untenable. It's just not an option.
Yeah,
Or
yeah,
if you're just like so broken that yeah, the things that are a day to day, oh, it's just a bit of an annoying Tuesday. People,
yeah.
if you're
You have to
telling them, will need a
completely
minute to process.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Have to like completely rewrite what your normal is.
Mm, yeah.
Um,
Speaking of
and
that,
fill.
what? Okay.
I was going to say you have to kind of fill those spaces that people would normally fill with normal life. We have to fill it with different manageable things that are still fun enough for us to do,
Mm, like podcasting.
like podcasts. Yeah.
One of the our recurring opening segments as well is what random piece of bullshit are you dealing with this week? That you know just kind of pops up. How's your week going?
Week's not going too bad actually, but tomorrow is quite a special day because it's the 15-year anniversary of my very first seizure.
Oh, are you getting a cake?
I'm going to hide somewhere very safe and padded because I don't want to celebrate with the biggest seizure of all time. Because
The
the
bit.
biggest seizure of all time will be the one that kills me. So we can, wait until my anniversary is over. We'll do that Wednesday.
It also might be a small seizure. You never know.
It could be a funny little tickle of a seizure.
Yeah, just a little. You're like, oh, tee.
See, that's the thing as well. Like when you have a little seizure, I refer to it as a little one, which means I've been spazzing for like 15 minutes. I haven't had to be drugged or taken to hospital, and I have minimal injuries. That's a good seizure.
Hmm.
Whereas most people in their life have one seizure and go, "Oh, that's terrifying." And it's like, yeah, that's all right. But yeah, so we should say random funny stories. Recently, I did. It was like something out of a film. So I was changing a light bulb. Um, then all I know is waking up in hospital with the neck collar on, and they're taking me for a CT scan, which is really confusing to wake up and you're immobilized. And they told me that they'd turned up at the house. There was a ladder, a broken light bulb, and me lying next to it. And that's kind of the setup from a film, like trying to work out with a murder mystery,
No,
what's
it's a
happened here.
punchline to a joke. How
Yeah,
many
I know,
spazzes
right?
does it take to screw a light bulb?
Yeah, I know. And I don't know if I came off the ladder or not, but yeah, it's like, you couldn't plan a more obvious scene,
Hmm.
in a cartoon or something. That's classic for somebody falling off a ladder.
That's a good one. I have seem to have developed carpal tunnel syndrome from balloon twisting.
Oh, really? That's what you were doing last week, wasn't it?
Hmm. I spent 2 days at an A&P show as a balloon twister, and my hand is fucked. And I can't quite tell if it's. I definitely think it's actually mechanical. It's not my nervous system just being a dick.
Right,
Um.
right.
So yeah, that's like, huh. I really would like it to not require surgery because that would
Can
be the ninth one.
When you're doing, because obviously you do a lot of entertaining and things in front of the public,
Mm.
does your physical pain get in the way? Like, have you had to cancel things or anything like that because of
Um,
your stupid
it's
body?
when I'm on a stage or like just working like in front of a crowd, my brain like goes into a different gear and I don't have any pain. And I, for whatever that time is, I fly. I am like untethered by the things that normally keep me back. And it's one of
Right,
the
right.
reasons I love doing it because it's like it's a real free. time. And then I don't really remember most of my performances after it because I'm in this kind of extra brain gear.
It's kind of like a
Um,
dopamine endorphin kind of.
yeah, kind of. It's kind. I don't know. It's yeah. I don't know. It's just a different. It's a
Mm,
weird thing. But then I do pay for it afterwards. Like if I do a really long set and I'm pushing myself past what my my reasonable capabilities are,
yeah,
then
yeah,
I'll end up like having a big pain flare or
yeah.
just yeah.
Well, because yeah, people say that to me. It's like, why don't you know, sort of slow down and take it easy and be aware of your limitations? It's like, no, no, you've still got to do what feeds you,
Mm.
um, and then you're going to be absolutely fucked later on. 'Cause you were the one that told me about the spoon theory. Like
Oh yes.
we try and live our normal life compared to other people's, but we don't have as many spoons. So,
Mm.
can you explain what the spoon theory is?
Oh, spoon theory. So spoon theory is an internet meme basically, and it came from this post of a woman who deals with lupus. And the post that she had is she was sitting with her friend and she was just chatting, and her friend like kind of very earnestly asked her like, what is it like? And she kind of went through her spiel about, her normal, like how you explain stuff. And her friend was like, no, no, what's it really like living with a disability? And she was like, huh, like
Mm.
how do you explain that to a normie? So she got a bunch of spoons from the cafe they were at. And she said, well, this is your life. You have this many spoons to get through the day. But everything that a normie doesn't think about takes a spoon. So getting out of bed and getting dressed, that's a spoon. Getting your hair done, that's a spoon. The dishes, spoon. Unloading the dishwasher, that's a spoon.
Mm, mm.
And you can borrow spoons from the next day, but then you don't have enough spoons for the next one. And it's this idea that there's only so much capability that you have to get through a day, and you have to pick and choose when, where,
Yes.
and how you put that energy.
Yeah, and that's what people I think don't understand. 'Cause, other people they'll use one spoon to do, you know, getting up, getting ready, do their hair, brush their teeth, get to work,
Mm,
and that's one spoon. Whereas that's half my spoon's gone. If I do
yeah,
that.
that's like nine things,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
but I think it also conversely, it's become in the kind of disability community this real, very well-known kind of trope, as it were. And I
yeah,
think
yeah.
people, it can also be used to limit yourself because you're like, oh no, I don't have enough spoons. I couldn't possibly do it today. And
No,
it's
I think
like,
we're. I don't think that we would be guilty of that because we're
no, I
always
don't think
suffering
we
from.
would be, but I do think that it's something that, kids today with their TikToks and their memes, it's
All the kids
self-diagnosis is
today.
very, very hip at the minute.
Yeah, yeah. Kids with their
And
dances and their modern things.
the dances and their strange haircuts, I just don't understand. Um, but yeah, this spoons is it's a really interesting concept. And I think it is a really good way of getting across to someone who doesn't understand how hard things are.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's a nice shorthand as well. If you're speaking to someone and you're like, oh no, I don't have quite enough spoons to do that thing.
Yes, I use that. I use that because it's just so much easier than trying to
Hmm.
explain the full things. And like, I think once people get that, they realize that getting up and, like you say, unloading the dishwasher, that might be all you can do because yesterday's spoons stole all of today's.
Hmm. Yes.
But
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And I think it's
But
good.
as I say, it's like how people get used to having coffee without sugar. I think we kind of get used to doing things without having any spoons left. Um,
Hmm.
we kind of collapse inwardly. Like I generally get about 4 hours sleep a night, um, and probably doesn't help with keeping the seizures away. But that's what I get, and so that's what I have to deal with. And it's like,
Hmm.
can you imagine having like full energy and like 100 spoons for a day? Can you imagine what that would be like?
I it is so mystifying to me when I watch people just doing a whole day's worth of stuff.
I know, right?
Just like, so you just do like whatever you want and you don't have to think about how much doing X, Y, or Z activity is going to fuck you for the rest of the day.
Yes, yeah. And like with them planning where to be, like luckily we can do this podcast through Zoom. But if it was like, okay, every whatever day we're going to meet at whatever time, it will never happen, especially with
Mm.
you and I, because we're both spazzes. And if we arrange to meet, one of us is probably going to be too spazzy to do it.
Because we tried to launch this podcast a few years ago before the pandemic and Zoom came around. And I was like, I'll come around. And we recorded like one. And then it just never, like, the cogs of our respective disabilities just never met up.
Yeah, yeah.
Not work
So
at
at
all.
least at the minute, we're kind of managing to coordinate our spazziness. So we have this window of time where we're
Well,
both
I think,
capable.
like, even like you're saying, even if I'm like a total garbage heap of a day, I
Hmm.
can collapse on my couch, flick on my recording stuff, and just sit here and talk to you. Because otherwise, I'm going to be, I don't know, having a wank.
Which you may be doing right now. I don't know.
Well, the web, I'm not that much. No, this is I think to go into like the gross pits where my mind normally goes as a spazzy person. Actually, fuck it, because this is our podcast, isn't
Yeah,
it?
go for it. Say what
I
you
just
like.
I just edited myself. I cancelled my own brain.
No,
No. So I'm not a.
and I'll just put you on that. One thing about being joint spazzes is we can say whatever the fuck because we get it.
Hmm,
You know, if I can say to you, "Oh, so yesterday I pissed myself," you'll be like, "Oh yeah, yeah, that
hmm,
that happens."
yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, give me all your gory details. Tell me your stories.
I was gonna try and make this gag about being a quiet wanker, but uh, I think that boat has passed. But yeah, it is very much part of that being in the Spaz Club and being in that subculture doghouse or like that. We don't. Uh,
I think we
we don't.
latch
We
on
don't
to
give
other
a fuck,
spazzes.
huh?
We latch on to each other. I think we kind of congregate of like if we spy a spaz in the distance, we like want to gather them into our gang. But it's also very elusive. Like Rachel, your
Hmm.
wife,
My
um,
wife.
your wife, she is a member by proxy, I'd say,
Yeah.
because she has to live with a spaz.
Yes, and she has to see someone that she loves suffer through it, which is its own kind of special torture.
You know,
But
I'd actually be quite interested to bring her onto the podcast one day, to
yeah,
get her perspective as a person who has to deal with you. And that's not just your spazziness, that's just you as a person.
yeah, just well, my husband's a spaz, but here are all his moral failings as a person that
Yeah.
that I have to cope with. But it is. I think loved ones of spazzes definitely get a card because that stuff we were talking about before with like spoon theory or trying to explain what life is like. Like she's there and she sees and she has to like pick up the pieces of the things that I can't do.
Yes,
And a,
yeah.
a big part of our relationship, I guess, or like, our accommodations has been like her kind of readjusting her own expectations of what a person can do. And
Right,
like
right.
realizing that I can't do all of the things, or even most of the things, or some days even any of the things.
Yeah, yeah. And I suppose
Um,
it's not a it's not a deeper relationship, it's a different level of relationship.
mm,
Um so yeah, your like you say, your expectations and stuff. But I think they also have to look at the benefits of that. Like you have to, you're not just a pair of you going out doing your 9 to 5 and getting home and making dinner and whatever.
mm.
Your life is kind of more, I don't know, interesting and interwoven
Yeah,
because you
and I
have to
think
look at different ways of doing things.
because I tried very very hard, even up to a few years ago, to have a normal job and to provide for my family in a normal manner and in what I
Yeah,
thought was, suitable.
the rules
And
of life.
yeah, part of it because one, I want to, you know, provide for my family and meet the cultural expectations that I've
Hmm.
grown up with. Um, and also I think it was part of a way to prove to myself that I was okay. That like I might have had
Yes.
these things go wrong, but because I can do all the normie stuff, everything's fine. And
Yeah, yeah,
there's this real cycle of where I would get a job, be successful at the job because I'm relatively clever, and then after like a year ish, the constant pushing and demands of me going past what's really good for me would catch up with me. I'd have this huge health flare and just fall apart, and I would lose the job. And I
yeah,
went
yeah.
through like 4 or 5 jobs, and then the last one that I had, Rachel like looked me dead in the eye and she was like, "You are never working a job again."
That's amazing of her.
Um, which was great. It was also, hard for me, but that pivot has enabled me to focus on my like doing the entertaining and doing our kind of joint business and stuff. So now, we have a cool, exciting life where,
Do
you
you
know,
do you think there's a different expectation between male and female, or is that a whole different issue? Because, like, I don't know, I think generally, if we're going to go stereotype, like the guy is supposed to go out and do the job, and the woman can,
hmm,
you know, I don't know, going back to the 50s or whatever, do the housework. But I wonder if there's still a societal judgment that when I say, "Oh, I can't work because I'm disabled," people go, "Oh, that's a shame." Whereas if a guy says the same, is it like, oh, well, does his wife have to pick up the pieces? Or am I saying stuff now that is just making you feel really shit?
well, no,
You know, Steve.
you're not saying anything my father-in-law hasn't thought of. Um, I think, I think it depends. For me, as growing up as an American in the 80s, and in America where, that idea of being able to work and provide is like your definition of you as a person, that was a
Yes, yeah.
big thing to get over. I think there probably is that a little bit of that expectation where
Mm.
like, you get a little bit more of a soft pass as a lady. I could very well be wrong. I'm not a lady. Um, don't know if you noticed by my beard and general maleness.
Your general energy is quite male.
It's male, but it's not like blokey, I think.
Oh no, you're not like alpha male, if
I'm
you
a
want to use
I'm a
that term.
I'm a sneaky alpha. I'll direct the conversation rather than lead.
Yeah, you're the boss, but you don't let anybody know it.
Um, but so
Yeah, with you.
we were talking about like that expectation thing. It's definitely something I put on myself of
Yeah,
like
yeah.
just like subconsciously and all this kind of stuff. But I think one of the things that let me get past that was do you remember the 80s movie War Games with Matthew
Yes,
Broderick?
yeah. Yes, yeah.
Right. So in the end, Matthew Broderick convinces the sentient computer that launching nuclear missiles is a bad idea by making it play tic-tac-toe against itself. And it realizes that every time it's a tie, and that if you launch missiles, everybody loses. So
Yeah,
the
yeah.
only way to win is not to play. And
Yes,
I
yeah.
kind of came to that same realization with this, having a mortgage and a house and a type of life that would be non-Spaz Club, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
and that if I try and play that game, I will lose. I will lose my job. I will
See,
get sicker. The
I
only way to
still
win is not to play.
struggle. I
Hmm?
still struggle with that aspect of it, even though, like I said, it's been 15 years, is I still put that, like I still get embarrassed when people say, oh, what do you do? And I'm
Mm.
like, well, technically I'm disabled. And I kind of have that, I don't know, shame with it, which is why I've
Yeah,
started. I'm just at the point now of redefining it after somebody else described me as this. So I would say I was unemployed. And then I was somewhere, and these random people said, what do you do? And the person I was with said, she's a writer. and an actor. And I went, that sounds so much cooler. And so that's how I define myself now. And so rather than saying I'm unemployed, even though, I write for fun, act for fun,
Hmm.
it's still what I do.
But yeah, that's what you do as a person as opposed to
Yeah,
what you
yeah.
earn. Yeah.
And I've also, that's made me rephrase the question when I meet other people is I don't say, that's what do you do for a living? Because that is generally irrelevant unless it's part of their interest, like with you.
Hmm.
What I'll ask now is, what do you do for fun? Because
I,
that
I like
describes and
I like
defines.
how do you spend your time?
Yeah, that's good too. Yeah, yeah.
And
Because
I
someone's
think
job isn't necessarily relevant. And I think most people in, like, say, in normie life, um, would rather be doing more exciting things, and using their energy in a more fun way, in a more fulfilling way.
hmm,
Um, and so we have, as much as we can't do full time jobs, the energy that we do have, we can put into really sort of valuable to us
hmm.
areas.
And it's
Yeah,
funny, like people when I say people, like, what do you do? I say, oh, I'm a magician.
I
And they're like,
love that.
oh,
I love saying my friend's a magician. That makes me happy every time.
um, and they're like, oh, is that full time? And I'm like, oh, yeah, totally. And it's like
As
I
full
might not
time
have
as
had
you
a
can
gig for like
manage.
3 weeks, but it's like that's what I do.
When
Because
you do, that's what you do.
yeah, when I do, that's the thing that I do.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I don't do as much as you think I do because that conversation will take like half an hour and be complicated. So it's easier just to be like, yeah, I'm a full-time magician.
Yeah, yeah.
All of the time that I'm able to do stuff, I work as a magician. The amount of time that I'm able to do stuff is not a lot.
It's very minimal, like doing balloon animals and getting carpal tunnel syndrome.
Hmm. Well, it was like, and it that decision to pivot to magic was part of like a thought process of what is the most amount of money I can earn for the least amount of time doing the thing? Because
Yes.
doing the thing, I can't do a lot. So if I can only do 2 hours a week, but I'm getting $400 an hour, then that's
Yeah, that's a
way
good
more doable.
trade-off.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
And
uh,
people generally won't give you their money unless you do something in return, which is very selfish of them.
I find it very anti-communist, the whole idea of that.
Yeah, and it's very ableist, isn't it?
Totally ableist. So ableist. I think you know what I
That's
would like to have is just some stickers. So then when people are ableist, I can just be like fucking ableist and just stick a sticker on them that says I'm a fucking ableist.
And we can use the Spaz card then. That's see, I've tried to avoid using the epilepsy card to get, I don't know, preferential treatment, but
Free
it's
ice
always in your
cream at
back pocket.
shops.
If well, I've used it in genuine ways, like when I was going on a long bus journey and someone took my seat that I'd booked specifically, so it was in the safest place should I have a seizure on this long journey.
Hmm.
And someone decided that they were old and needed my seat. And I did sit there for a bit in my shit seat going, oh, I can't kick an old person out of my seat. And I was like, well, actually, no, fuck it. I booked it specifically because of my spazziness.
Hmm.
And so I played the card and made an old person move,
Good on
which
you.
is kind of bad. But they were a very able old person. They weren't, rubbish. I was trying to think of a better word, but yeah, every now and again, like, and I have used it at an airport when um, I was traveling on my own big long journey, and so I used it to sit in comfier seats because they were nearer where staff were, in
Oh yeah.
case something happened.
Well,
But still, before using the card, there's always that: should I play the card? And then it's like every now and again you have to.
I think the answer to that question is always yes. Yes, you should play the card. You should have all of the cards. Like if society were set up in a proper manner, people in our particular situations, A, wouldn't feel bad about being there. B, would be
Yes.
sorted the fuck out because honestly, I would much like if I were the benevolent dictator of West Stevestan, then
I would
like
visit there.
well obviously you'd be the associate minister of spaz issues.
Thank you.
And because of your tireless efforts, every like bar and hotel would have a spaz room where you can go and just seize, and it's just covered in pillows and soft things.
And see, that would be fun for most people, just like come into this comfy, squishy room and roll about a bit. Though it would end up filled with piss and drool and dribble and probably some blood from biting our faces.
Well, but the thing is that once someone went in there and made a mess of it, then there would be a cleaner paid very well to sort it out because I'm the benevolent dictator.
True, true. And just talking about the Spaz card, that's just reminded me of a friend. One New Year's Eve, we are trying to get home from town, and there was obviously no taxis. And she was like, "Can you play the card and get an ambulance and get us to hospital because that's at least halfway home, and we can walk from there." And obviously we didn't, but there was one occasion where, and it was a genuine one, where I was out in a party in the middle of nowhere, and had pretty much a bottle of tequila and had had an awesome night, dancing like an absolute twat. And then about 2 in the morning, had a massive seizure, and the ambulance was called out. And at one point, they were considering getting me choppered out of there because I wouldn't continue breathing, which was a pain in the ass.
Mm.
And the ambulance brought me back to home city, put me into hospital. I was in ICU for 3 days. Um, and so when I woke up, rather than waking up in my mate's truck, which is where I was going to be sleeping, rather than waking up in her truck in the middle of nowhere with a pounding headache, I woke up down the road in a comfy bed with no hangover because I've been on a drip for 3 days. And then just went, "Oh, morning," and came home. And so
Mm.
that was probably my best seizure because the night
Well
just
done.
ended really nice. Like, you go and drink a bottle of tequila and wake up with no hangover. I'm like, yeah, I quite like
I
that.
really think that everyone, and I mean everyone, could do with like at least once a week getting hooked up to some saline just to
Yeah.
get hydrated.
Yeah, well, wasn't there some guy, I don't know if it was here or it was in America, but somewhere in the world, that was doing that as a kind of, I don't know, dodgy thing out on the street, like drive around and hook people up to IVs after they've finished their night out drinking, and kind of like a boost, or in the morning before they go off to work. And I think that's a
I do
great.
know that I do know from several very illuminating YouTube videos that a number of tech billionaires and the Democratic pedophile ring that runs everything in America, they take blood from children and do that as an IV.
What?
No,
No,
that was a joke. That was a
I
joke.
was
But
going to
there are
say, I was going to say, like, what? Pedophiles taking blood from children?
oh
That's
god,
like,
it's
that's a
there
whole
are
nother
people
level
that
of it.
believe that who are alive, which blows my mind. But no, some people uh are idiots. But
Well, see, this is another
back
thing
no,
about
sorry,
being
let's get
disabled.
back to the point about West Stevestan,
Oh, yeah,
um
sorry.
where as Chancellor in Chief, and that there I think everyone should be supported to provide to the best of their ability with the talents that they have.
Yes.
I'm a big believer in universal basic income,
Yeah,
um,
same.
not just for me because it would be nice, but I think everyone, everyone, even uh, all people and normies have their own pieces of bullshit that they push through or don't deal with properly because they're so busy working and just getting on with life.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I think if we all had the little bit of space that not having that pressure of having to work like that and having to struggle just to exist, we would all
Yeah,
be much
yeah.
happier as a people and much happier as a society. I really
And
think.
it would be more productive. Like, if you've got families like there is now struggling to feed and clothe themselves and their children, and kids are missing school because there's one pair of shoes, so they'd have to choose which kid would have them to go to school.
Mm,
Um, Imagine if people didn't have to worry about stuff like that, what they would be able to give to society or to their
mm.
own families that is just so much more productive and fun and relevant. Like, rather than everyone just pounding through until they're dead.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about like how much, and this is one of the things that helps me get through is like the amount of like happiness and joy that I spread doing the hours that I can do,
Mm, mm.
working as a magician and a balloon twister and this and that, doing the things that are suited for my particular physicality. Like that's a lot more joy than would have been done if I were working in a bank.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah. See, that's something that I struggle with, is because of financial situations. So obviously, I'm on disability benefit.
Hmm.
If I was to be in a relationship, I wouldn't be eligible because you're joint income or whatever.
Yeah, your
So I wouldn't
partner is
be
then expected to
eligible.
carry it.
So I am actually in the situation now where I won't have a relationship, um, because I would have to say meet somebody, and for a start, that could be a tricky situation with a brand new person you don't know, that
Hmm.
have a seizure with them. Um, but I'd have to like right at the start of whatever relationship say, oh, you do know that if we go forward, you're financially responsible for me. That's not really second date talk, is it?
Have I mentioned that I'm a complete drain on your life, finances, and everything?
Yeah, and I've got high demand, so I have to have expensive things. But yeah, so you can't go into a relationship knowing that if it goes further, that they've got to take you on as a financial burden. So with the
Hmm.
current sort of world, like saying with if there was a universal income, then I wouldn't have to worry about that and could possibly consider having a relationship with anyone other than my cat. Um,
Don't have
because
sex
yeah,
with cats.
well, you can't expect another human to be financially responsible for you.
No, and I think, and with my wife, who we met like the week after I had my first big fall,
I love that.
um, and I was like limping, and so, but I've only really gotten like properly broken in the latter kind of chunk of our relationship.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, and she was doing something, but basically, I remember like the benefit people were like, "Well, okay, you're broken, Steve. So Rachel, you need to nut up and work this many hours a week and do this stuff." And it was like a whole thing because I can't. All of that load gets lumped onto her,
yes,
and
yeah,
it's like we were saying kind of at the beginning a little bit was like um just that our partners or people who do end up in relationships with spazzes get that associate spaz card because that societal weight that we can't carry just gets
yeah,
put into
yeah,
their bag.
yes,
Society's like, oh, okay, well, that person's shit. So everything that they do, should do, you have to do now to make up for it because they're garbage.
yeah, and that is how it makes you feel. Which is, I think, yeah, the associate members. I kind of can pick my people that get it by those who my seizures aren't the main thing about me. They're not the defining factor. So they
Hmm.
see me for all my amazing and wonderful qualities and the joy that I bring to the world.
Oh,
Um,
so
and then
much joy.
absolutely, just it's
Oh,
ridiculous.
it radiates
And
off
then
you like the dew from a summer flower dripping.
I
You're
do.
like a
I'm a
drippy
light
flower.
shining in the darkness. But the people who can see all those amazing things and then go, oh, yeah, she has a seizure now and again, they're the
Hmm.
people. Where there's other people who the seizures are the first thing they see. And then it's a surprise that I also have some qualities. Like there
Hmm.
was a lady whose house I used to clean years back. And it was fine. Then one day her father-in-law was there and she wasn't. And me and him were having a chat and we were talking literary stuff and having quite a deep conversation about it. And then I noticed she was standing in the doorway and looked up and she went, oh, I didn't realize you were intelligent.
Oh,
And it's like,
shit.
that's exactly the kind of thing that it's the thing that we put on ourselves is that people aren't going to see your qualities.
But the
Um,
thing is that she was wrong because you're a fucking moron.
Yeah, true. I was reading from a book. It was just her father-in-law saying stuff, and I was like, "Yep, yep, I agree with that. Those words
I
I don't
agree with you,
understand."
smart person. You
But
are
yeah, it's
correct.
people have their sort of preconceived notions of what spaz is.
Hmm.
Um,
And it is like you're saying that thing. It takes up so much of people's brain space. The mere fact that we exist as a complete outlier to their system of how the world works, where everyone is fine. And it's like, speaking of ableism, it's very this idea in the States, especially, where like, oh, I don't want my tax money going to pay for some drug addicts,
Yes.
or the ability
Benefit
to,
scroungers and all that kind of
yeah,
stuff.
and the idea that there are people who could use a bit of support, but because people who their whole life is just they're surrounded by other people who can work and do these things and have the natural benefits that the way our society is structured has handed
Yeah,
them.
yeah,
And
yeah,
they're like, oh, well, I did it. Why can't everyone else? And it's like, well, here's a start. People aren't like you all the time. And
yeah,
also,
yeah.
would you like a list? Would you like to see my medical bills?
See, this is something as well that people don't realize with that day to day is that I did a post last year sometime, and it was 30 things that people don't realize about having seizures.
Mm,
Like in most people's lives, they see one, they see me have one or two seizures, and after doing this post of how it's every day, every moment of every day, I might have one or two seizures in a week, and my week is wiped out because of injuries, because of drugs, because of just the sheer exhaustion of having a seizure for half an hour or more, which is what my seizures do.
mm.
Um, and after doing the post, so many people said, "Shit, I didn't realize that." The full toll that it takes on you. People just think, "Oh, half an hour seizure, that's fine. That's half an hour out of all the hours in a week." And I think by being kind of open about actually this is what happens, it does give people more of an understanding of why we're incapable. So, I mean, I've even had it with work and income where she said to me, "Oh, so you just sit around watching TV waiting for a seizure to happen now and again?" And
Fucking
it's
A.
like, yeah. And I actually had to lie on the floor in the work and income office and show her what a seizure is like and what she would have to do. So
Mm.
I had to sit on the chair and say, I might start feeling like this. And then this is what people tell me I do when I'm on the floor. I might piss myself. And then this is what you have to do afterwards and help me back onto the. Yeah. And it's like, this is in an open plan office where I'm lying on the floor. And to her, it was like, oh, this is an interesting, fun little story. And to me, it's like, this is my life. It's not a
Mm.
funny little jokey tale,
Well,
And
it's
I
like
think
when
by,
so people say to Rachel, they're like, "Oh, is Steve doing better now?" Because they'll have heard
mm,
about like one of my surgeries, or like, oh, they know Steve's got like some stuff going on, and she's like, "No, he doesn't get better. That his life is broken.
yeah, yeah. See,
The idea of that a life can fall so far apart is so far outside of most people's
yeah,
comprehension."
yeah, yeah. So I have the same thing. People go, "Oh, any seizures lately?" But yes, yes, all the time. This hasn't changed for years. And like, or people go like, "Oh, because I have black eyes fairly regular," and I go, "Oh, did something happen?" Yeah, I had a seizure and smacked my head off something. It's like to me, it would be an interesting story if it wasn't a seizure. You go, "Oh my god, this thing happened. I trapped over like a dick and smacked my head off a curb." Um, that's more interesting.
Hmm.
But so when people think, "Oh my god, you've had an incident," yeah, it's kind of normal life. And like people think, "Oh, if they only get your medication right, you'll be okay," or if you only sort this thing out, you'll be okay, or if
Have
you
you
deal
tried
with stress, you'll be
CBD?
okay.
Have you? It's a miracle. CBD is amazing.
Yeah, and see, I went to a talk lecture on different types of seizures, and the lady who's like a world-renowned neurologist, and she said that there's so many different types of seizures, so there's so many different ones that aren't understood, can't be cured, whatever. And at the end of the lecture, she said, questions, and this guy said, "What about cannabis?" And she just rolled her eyes and she went, "I always get asked this question." He said, "The thing is, because so many people have so many seizures, you only hear about the people that it's worked for.
Mm,
You don't hear about the hundreds of thousands of people that it hasn't worked for."
mm.
And so people go, "Oh, you use CBD, it cures everything." And it's like, yeah, and it might very well help so many people a lot. I've tried. it doesn't help me.
Mm.
I wish it did. But I mean, I've had the most random of ideas to try and help me, and it's like I would run down the main street naked on a Saturday afternoon if it meant my seizures would stop. So do you
And
think
yet,
I haven't tried
my
getting
suggestion
sleep?
of just not having seizures, you refuse to take
And
because
I'm
you're
so
selfish.
stubborn.
And you just want to lit around, laze around on the benefit, being a complete drain to everyone, feeling like a horrible, not human because you just want to be seizing. You
Oh, I
selfish,
just love
selfish
it.
bitch.
I love pissing myself.
I love that you love it. I'm into it for you. So that
Luckily,
almost brings us to the end of today's episode. So just a little look back on. I know today's been quite a meandering chat, I think, but this idea of Spaz Club membership and that kind of, I don't want to say exclusion, but feeling not included in
feeling
society.
understood, being
Not, yeah,
understood
not
by,
understood.
yeah. Well, I think with you and I both being in the Spaz Club, we we don't make excuses, but we get it without having to explain. We
Mm,
can go, I'm just shit. We don't need to say any more
yeah,
because we get it.
yeah. Like, oh, are we plan to meet up on Thursday? And you're like, oh, sorry, I'm just shit today. It's
Yeah,
like, okay,
yeah,
cool.
yeah, completely.
Like,
So yeah.
there was some work I was supposed to have done for this podcast, but I failed to do it because I'm a bit shit. And it's like, okay, cool.
But it's really nice just having a chat with another spaz. So
Oh, it is. I do enjoy our podcast time, and I hope our listeners maybe get something out of it, or are at least interested in life as a spaz, or maybe they've got a spazzy friend. Or I think there is a large community that exists of people like us, and I think it's much larger than people realize because there are probably a number of spazzes who are just using their spoons,
mm.
who live in places that don't have social safety nets.
And people who are newly spazzed, like they've only just found out they're a full-time spaz, or they've had an accident or an incident or an illness. It's like, welcome to the club. You are now one of us. So yeah,
I,
I think new spazzes might benefit, and I think just people in general who they're not spaz, they don't know spaz. It's just that awareness that somebody walking down the street might be having issues,
mm,
and so don't write them off before you know their story.
mm. And I think it's as well this idea of the invisible spazzes, you know?
Mm,
There's a lot of, spazzes and wheelchairs are with really obvious, you know,
yes,
neurological stuff. You're like, oh, that person's got something going on.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. Whereas, like, yeah, say with me, I'm amazingly intelligent. I'm absolutely beautiful, and so people think she's fine. Yeah. I mean, obviously, both those facts are very, very true, um, but
yeah, oh,
they don't.
totally, totally.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mm.
You look doubtful, um, but I
Uh,
think then with it being the invisible disability, um, people don't see it as that serious, and they're like, "Oh, I'd
mm,
never have thought," which is good because it means I'm hiding it well. But also, people then don't understand this is why I'm rubbish.
yeah. But like when my pain flares are getting really bad, I get kind of like dinosaur arms and I start to hunch over and I just look like something's wrong.
Right.
And then people are like, have you got something going on? And you're like, fucking yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Jesus Christ.
We should
Anyway,
have badges. We should have badges.
we should have badges and hats. Badges and
Yes,
hats
please.
and stickers and dealy boppers. The like wiggly haired head things.
And you could give them out at the same time that you do your balloon modelling.
My balloon was made by a spaz. Okay, well, thank you guys so much for joining us today. We'll be back again next week with a whole show, and we'll see y'all again soon.
Wonderful. Bye.